life, but somehow or another, my association with 3M and the University of Minnesota, I managed to keep at least a couple of toes in the academic community. I'm going to focus on the front end. That is the period from the time you get an idea to the time the project is approved. This is probably the most critical time of any innovation, not only for any innovation, but for any product development program. Positive that you've heard a lot about factors that drives enterprise sustainability. And there are three of them: promoting innovation, encouraging entrepreneurship, and managing technology. And you'll see how these tie in to innovation as I go through my presentation. I'm going to cover basically the items that I consider important for a technology-driven enterprise. I'm going to begin. What is innovation? Let's agree on a definition, at least on the which I'm presenting it. What are the sources of innovation? I continually get questions. Where do you get the ideas? The innovation process. It takes to be an innovator. You as an innovator leading to an entrepreneur, and you as an innovator leading to entrepreneur. Innovation, what is it? A search through the literature, management literature, basically says that innovation presents something new. Sorry. Innovation presents something new, but from a different industry. Creates economic value. It involves a chaotic process, and if any the innovation process is chaotic, depends on customer interaction, because if you don't satisfy the customer, you don't have an innovation. Requires a passionate promoter, definitely, and it lives in the marketplace. These were comments that were made by people like Peter Drucker, Levitt, Richard Foster, Tom Peters, James Bryan Quinn, and others. 8. I'm going to show you what Ed Roberts, who's the David Stanoff Professor of Management of Technology of MIT. Ed Roberts defined innovation as innovation is composed of two parts: the generation of an idea or invention, and the conversion of that idea into a business or other useful application. He then went on to cover discussion meant by management of technology. The overall management of technological innovation includes organization and direction of human and capital resources toward effectively producing four items: creating new knowledge, generating technical ideas aimed at new and enhanced products, manufacturing processes and services, and developing those ideas into working prototypes and transferring them into manufacturing, distribution, and use. So we come to the situation where we're defining management of technology and innovation, almost the same words. So for our purposes of this presentation, I use the following description of innovation. Innovation equals an idea or invention plus commercialization or implementation. Commercialization and no implementation, no innovation. Now keep in mind, innovation is not research. We're not talking about long-term research projects. We're talking innovation. And that definitely involves a form of commercialization or implementation. I've been often asked, what are the sources of innovation? Peter Drucker proposed some many years. Unexpected events. We certainly have one at the present time. Incongruities and inconsistencies. Those are the things that, we look at them and say, look, that shouldn't be. The process needs. I don't care what area, what industry you're in, what technology you're in, whether you're in the government, whether you're in the social area. We certainly suffer on the implementation of processes. Changes in industry and markets. Demographics change by state, they change by countries, and basically that requires different types of products or different applications, modifications. Change in perception of food. Well, we're in that situation today. And new knowledge, you can't, this is one of the things that I think we often forget about, and is started innovation, keeping up with the new knowledge. However, not letting that new knowledge interrupt a successful program, because it's very easy to pick on some information, some new technology, and decide all of us are going to implement. I also have some personal sources of information. Innovation. This is something that I've watched over my lifetime as I worked with engineers, and not just engineers, but people in general. What do they observe? What do our senses tell us? When we listen, what do we hear? When we see something, what are they telling us? Surveying the landscape around us. There are all kinds of issues that we can find that need to be taken care of. Now, the same goes for the technological landscape within your organization. What needs to be improved? What new technologies are required? What technology should be dropped? What can we learn from organizations and cultures? Well, from organizations, let me give you an example. Henry Ford got the idea for the automatic assembly line by building a slaughterhouse. And cultures, spending 7 years in Italy and Europe as a foreign service employee, I learned the Home Office doesn't necessarily have all the answers. Curiosity and inquisitiveness. I find curiosity related to technology among all types of people, whether they're social studies people, whether they're psychologists, economists, and so forth. You find some people who have that curiosity. What can we learn from other disciplines? What can we learn from economics? What can we learn from human behavior? All of these apply in our activities as we consider innovation. And history, take a look at your own personal history, or the collective thing that you have done in your lifetime, and see where those might provide some ideas. And then finally, time you spend thinking about, and you muddle around in your mind. It may go on for months. Somehow you can't come to a conclusion. So what do? You drop it. Maybe you pick it up a few months later with a different perspective. However, basically, this is the hardest job that anybody has. I'm positive all of you know Clayton Christensen. In his studies, he found that 92% of startups fail. That's 11 out of 12. 95% of product innovations fail. That's 19 out of 20. Long development time, 40%. That usually begins because the front end wasn't taken care of. Select the right product, also because the front end wasn't taken care of. Corporations being risk averse and basically not funding programs adequately or stretching out the time. Lack of coordination among the various disciplines and departments in an organization. Lack of ideas. Marketing, 20%. Accenture Research, which is a big consulting firm, found that 60% of organizations fail from their mistakes. 82% and innovation the same as the business. That's impossible. And 72% crucial growth opportunities. Pricewaterhouse, their study shows 50% of organizations fail to bridge innovation and business strategy. Number three other, I didn't put together a slide because it's a rather old publication. The publication showed where 3,000 raw ideas, and I stress raw ideas, presented 300 ideas that eventually ended up with 2 and 1 success. That's not a very good record. So I'm going to talk about, next I'm going to talk about that front end of the innovation process. I'm going to introduce you to Henry Petroski. I'm going to talk about the raw idea to proof of concept and pose questions that relate to the idea, and then pose questions related to business. And then a couple of slides on from proven idea to proposal, selling the project, which is one of the most important areas to concern, yet is often neglected. Then a few words about implementation. Henry Petroski is a professor in history at Duke University and also other positions. He originally wrote this, and he said, a pencil sketch of an idea on the back of an envelope may capture the essence of a potential innovation, but this flash of creativity is seldom sufficient to see a contract or build a artifact. Instead, an engineer's initial drawing will usually produce negotiations, discussion, so forth and so on. I paraphrase that for innovation. Come to the same conclusion. The raw idea of an innovation does nothing more than create discussion, negotiations, compromise, arguments, and a lot of thinking if it's going to be a success. Now I'd like to here's the basic program I put together over my years in working on in innovation. How you bring a raw idea to proof of concept. It consists basically of stages, which you multiplies into multiple stages, but I'm not going to show them all on the screen. But the two inputs, those people considering the raw idea and those people looking at the business opportunities. And why did I separate? You try to bring the two groups together at the same time, you end up with a lot of confusion. Immediately, the business people will start raising the questions, well, do you really have a business? Well, we really haven't decided on the idea yet. So basically, to recognize that these are two separate groups and two separate groups of people with different mentalities in order to bring that idea to fruition. In stage 2, the purpose is to develop the idea by providing data, knowledge, analysis, both for inputs 1 and 2, and eventually ending up with documented evidence. And I say documented evidence because too much innovation is done on an informal basis. I got an idea, so let's try doing it. That might be okay to start something, but if something that is worthwhile pursuing, it needs documentation, it needs evidence. And it needs evidence both from the raw idea perspective and from the business opportunity perspective. And when you go to stage 4, this is the first time that you basically bring all the groups together to sort out data and knowledge and try to reach some decisions. And most likely go back to stage 1 again and go through the same process again many times until you have a decision. How many iterations it's going to take, I can't tell you. I've been in some that have taken 30 and 40 because of the complexity. Now, I'm not speaking here of small projects. I'm speaking here of projects that are in the millions. The majority of my projects later in life usually ended up someplace between $10 and $20 million. That takes a lot of control. It takes introspection. It takes a lot of cooperation between the people working on inputs 1 and 2. So I'm starting with a series of questions, both for the idea people and for the people from the management side. What is the innovation mindset in the organization? If there isn't a mindset for innovation, nothing's going to happen. How do you validate that idea? Validation is a complex process. It requires basically taking every possible issue in that idea, turning it around a half a dozen times, trying to come up with some kind of a conclusion. Find the technologies. This here becomes, what are the technologies? You know, technologies are in many different states. When we begin talking about using emerging technologies in an innovation, be cautious, because unless those technologies aren't proven in the specific areas in which we're going to use, looking for trouble. What is our knowledge of all of those technologies? People like to omit this particular spot, this particular point, but it's to their detriment, because if there isn't knowledge, it must be provided. And every innovation is going to have a different set of technologies. Pinpoint the talent. Do you have the talent? Now, there's different kinds of talent that are required. Resolve the design issues, identify the knockouts, go to the proof of concept. The business mindset. Is there a strategic fit? Does what we're talking about fit the organization? This is not to say that you should drop it, but it needs to be considered. It may be a great idea, but maybe it doesn't fit the technologies. It doesn't fit the business model of the organization. It the technology model of the organization. Is there a strategic fit? Now, what do I mean by strategic fit? A lot of talk about strategy over the years, but we find very few companies that have a finalized strategy when it comes to technology. And we often realize that the technology is even omitted from their final business plan. What are the resources that are available? The human, the capital, the services. These all must be a major part. Because if you don't have the people, if you don't have the talent, that creates a problem, because whatever you may try to do, you have to be trying to generate the talent or try to develop it. Trying to develop the talent of the beginning of an innovation is a difficult process. What are the possible deliverables? What are we going to end up with? What are the manufacturing capabilities? What are the market sales and physical distribution? How do they apply to this particular idea that we're talking about? What are the global opportunities? Are they local? Are they US? Are they Europe? Or are they worldwide? And what is the organizational culture? Because without a proper organizational culture, it's impossible to carry on an innovation program. So what does it take to go from proof of concept to project proposal? Provide full description of the idea, and that means a full description. Total. That involves everybody, not just the techie people. It involves the whole organization. What's innovative about it? That's a difficult answer sometimes because of our basic feeling that whatever we're talking about is innovative. But we better check to see whether or not it really is innovative. What are we going to deliver? What are the deliverables from this particular program? Show reasons why someone would purchase or use the deliverables. These are all things that have to be done ahead of time. What are the market opportunities? Where are they? Are they local? Are they worldwide? Those things need to be delivered. Because consider the time and the timing. Time is very important as well as the timing. You will not know what perhaps hundreds of other organizations are doing in your same field of interest. And basically that information is essential. Describe the implications for other business functions. How are other business functions in the organizations going to be affected? And finally, why should this proposal be approved? What are the benefits? What are the specific benefits to the organization? What are the specific benefits to the society? These must be defined and written down and reviewed, because otherwise you might be going down the wrong track. How do you go from proof of concept to proposal? Framing the project in its entirety. And that means in its entirety. Select the project leadership. Now, this always becomes a question as to who should become the project leader. The project leader doesn't necessarily have to be the specialist on the technology. The project leader must be the person who can bring together all of the members of the team. That is a responsibility. Identify the key people assignments. This becomes a growing proposition because initially, as you go through the program, you'll find that assignments may change information that you might have gotten in the meantime. And finally, develop integrated cost estimates, cost-benefit analysis, market projections, a marketing plan, a manufacturing plan, and schedules. Now, these are four basically relatively common topics that must be considered. However, I would like to bring a question up here because I started a program years ago at 3M. I was criticized in the beginning by the VP of Engineering because at the beginning of a project, I brought in the accounting department, marketing department, and all the people that would play a role in that project. And my purpose of it was because as I looked over past projects at 3M, that from the time a project proposal is presented to the financial department, it may take 8 months before all of the questions are answered from the financial people. So I brought those people to the program at the beginning, so that they were part of the program. Surprising what happened. The time we wrote the project proposal, that program was approved by the financial department within 24 months. Not 6 months, not 8 months, while people were trying to work out the details. I'll put it on selling the concept. How do you sell the idea? Not an easy thing. And it's a certain type of person to sell it, and that may not necessarily be the innovator. Keep that in mind. The Innovation Prevention Department. Every organization has one. If you don't think it has one, I don't think you understand what your organization is all about. Do your homework. Number 2, who are the decision makers in the organization? And identify them. And in the process of developing this program, try to make contact with them. One of the things I found out in my lifetime, this came from several vice presidents at 3M who thanked me for making a presentation on a proposal I was making before it came to them. It gave them the freedom to ask all the questions they preferred to ask that probably would not ask in a group. That cleared up a lot here. Tailor to everybody. You got to do the pre-selling. When you start, follow the script. People after the script, they got to decide, oh, I thought of something else. No, follow the script. You probably rehearsed it with your boss and several other people. So don't change it to make the proposal. And if you receive the approval, leave with a thank you. Because too often, and I've had instances where I've taken people up to make a proposal. Finally, the person in charge would say, maybe I shouldn't have signed it after all. So once you've received approval, thank the group and leave. Project implementation is complete. It's now approved. Do what you said would you do. Follow the approved plan. Don't overplan. Don't start a design for project approval. This is something that the engineers have a tendency to do. After the project's been approved, oh, another idea. No, that's not what was approved. Do what you said you were supposed to do. If there was a need to redesign, go back to the people who approved it. Because that redesign may cost you 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, or a year in delay. You're going to be in trouble. Let them know ahead of time if something came up that you weren't aware of before. Project team and communicate. Implementation is a multifunctional effort. It's not just the project manager, not just the boss, it's the whole team. Follow project management principles, and remember, what gets measured gets done. I'm going to talk a little about innovator traits, and these are common. These are all from publications. We all know what they are: self-confidence, broad interest, vision of the possible, pathfinder, coalition builder, power to influence, and focus on results. I don't think we'll disagree with any of those. However, there are others which are probably more important. Focus and drive. If you can't focus the innovation, you don't have the people that are going to drive trouble. It requires a tremendous amount of ingenuity and initiative, and the old 3M attitude of basically bootlegging. You bootleg whatever you have to do in order to get the the information or the testing equipment, parts, whatever you need to do, but you do it legally. And as a matter of fact, legging in my day at 3M was a common trait that anybody who got anything accomplished definitely practiced bootlegging, but in a professional way. Number two, remember that you can't do it alone. This innovation requires a group of people working together. Even though the person who came up with the idea might be the innovator, that person cannot do it alone. He or she needs a team of people to put the program together. Requires a lot of high energy because 24, if you're going to be an innovator, this is 24-hour around the clock effort at times. Got to be a doer and a thinker. And basically, you got to be able to accept risk and failure. And the most innovators that I've known who have failed start up again and start up again and start up again. So you as an innovator to entrepreneur, start with the front end. It's the only thing that counts. Don't start at the back end. Start at the front end. What do you really want to do? There's a learning curve, and that learning curve can be very steep because that learning curve requires more than the technology. You're trying to build a product. You're trying to build a product. Self-analysis. Do you have what it takes? Do you have the temperament? A lot of people cannot accept failure. And I don't know, I know my first days at 3M, some individual walked into my office and was telling me about people, and this guy never had failure. And I had looked up at him and I said, well, what did he accomplish? We don't accomplish anything without some failure. Knowledge. What do you know about your topic? If you don't know it, start learning about it. Where do you start? The kitchen sink or the investor's office? I don't think too many people start in the investor's office. And what does it take to be successful? Focus, 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 and more focus. Personal issues and commitment requires a fantastic commitment of time and effort. And money issues, primarily cash flow. And this is something any innovator who starts on his own quickly recognizes the importance of cash flow. You're an innovator to entrepreneur. Depends on your organization. Is it a single or multi-platform or products or services? A single product company is difficult to become an entrepreneur. Look at the history of a new to the market products and product services introduction by the company. What is the employer's past history on innovation? Provide entrepreneurial activities. Does the freedom with discipline culture exist? Is the employer top down or bottom up or someplace in between? Does the employer have the resources and the infrastructure? Do you have your together kit? Now, these might seem like 8 simple topics, but believe you me, any innovator who's gone through them has sweat a lot of blood and tears. A few parting thoughts. Develop the front end. That is perhaps the most, and that's where we fail most of the time. Find the colleagues that provide the talent that you lack. You don't have all the talent. Make up your mind at the beginning, you don't have all the talent. Develop the competencies if you don't have them. Know your organization. What is your organization capable of doing? Is it innovative? Does it even think of innovation? These are all topics for you to consider. Who is the organization's leadership? Where did they come? If they come from the finance or from the marketing only, you'll find it quite differently than if you find them coming from growing up from the engineering ranks. When to quit and regroup. This is a hard thing to do. I carried on a project at 3M and finally one of the VP who was supporting me on the program finally said to me, Gus, look, nobody's buying it on. I can't sell it. Forget it for maybe somebody someplace down the line. But there comes a time when it said, look, give up and start something new. Don't mortgage the house. I'll tell you that from experience. That's not a good thing to do. As an innovator, you'll probably have a tendency to save what you started and continue. And the 8th point is learn something about cash flow. Because the money you think in the bank account, somehow or another, doesn't last very long. So thanks for your attention and best wishes for an exciting career as an innovator. Wish you all the luck. So now to accept any questions that have been provided by the group.
Hello guys, this is Gustavo. How are you? Thank you for your talk. I have a question about the business case. How do you promote your business case in case you don't have a product already and the market is unknown?
Well, you've got to know what the market is. Because the top of the organization, not in very many cases, will accept a project for which you can't justify it.
Guys, this is Rafael Sotelo. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question. You say that the seller of the idea may be someone different from the innovator himself. Can you give any example from real organizations? Position is that? Thank you.
Look, the originator of the idea may not always be the one who can sell the idea. There's a salesmanship quality required to sell an idea. And that takes a particular skill. And it takes a lot of time and to put together a program. And I'm positive all people have heard about the 60-second elevator speech. 60-second elevator speech is a lot of nonsense. It might convince somebody in that elevator to take a look you're talking about, but that would be only the beginning. It takes a lot of work, a tremendous amount of work, to put together a proposal. An example, when I went to Italy, take responsibility for engineering at a photographic plant that had about 5,000 people. We were looking at ancient equipment. It was 20, 30 years old. It took us a year to put together the first program for roughly $30 million because we had to start from the beginning. Because the equipment we had, we would have had to have shut down the organization. So depending on where you're starting, depending on what type of organization you have, it takes a lot of time and effort to prepare. You have to touch a lot of bases in an organization.
Hi, sir. I have a question.
Yeah.
can hear you, Raj. You can.
My question is, out of your experience, which is the skill of an innovator? How do you define the skill that has to be there in an innovator and the potential you see in an innovator by that skill?
Can you repeat the question, please?
If there's trouble asking the question, if you can please type that in the chat, I will ask that question on your behalf.
Yeah.
I have a question, please. What it takes an idea or an innovation to be feasible for to turn into a project, a startup?
Very simple answer. It must be marketable. There must be a need for it in some section or some group of people or some industry, some countries. And that takes a fair amount of effort to determine just exactly what can be done. As an example, if I have an idea, might be the greatest idea, I might think so. Will anybody buy it? This is where the beginning effort when we have an idea is to do sufficient study, not overstudy, but sufficient study. Talk to people, ask them, what do you think of this idea? And because it's not easy to come up with an original idea. Not easy.
One more. There are a lot of questions coming in on chat, but I'll go through them, in the order that they are coming in. Question number one from Stephen. Can you define bootlegging? How is it different from bootstrapping?
Okay, here's what I mean by bootlegging. I guess it depends I guess it's basic thing. Basically, what it is, you have your group of people to work with. So basically, you try to tap their brains as much as you can. All of the organizations within a company have their junk boxes. Maybe there's something that you can use in there that they don't need. I had a situation when I was in Italy. I needed a piece of equipment that would have cost me $5,000 to run a test. Called up one of my colleagues, the department, who I might have had an old one that he wasn't using. He said, "Yeah." He said, "I'll." Those are the things. And you stretch as far as you can without somehow getting involved with company policies. Not suggesting that you steal, but if you can convince a colleague to give you something because you need it as a part or something to prove a point, do it. As the old saying goes, it's easier to get forgiveness. So.
Next question is from Nahil Mohammed. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. The question is, how can we differentiate between invention and innovation? And at which step are we using creativity?
The creativity comes during the invention. Innovation requires commercialization. Most companies have patents, major companies have hundreds of patents that they've never implemented. Place them primarily for protection. So basically, the question of implementing.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question, which is from Rabis Foda. he would like to know your thoughts on how to measure the success of innovation.
You measure success of innovation in the marketplace. We're not measuring success of technology. We're measuring success of an innovation, and an innovation requires, by definition, implementation. So if it's not implemented, it's not an invitation, not an innovation.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question from Sanchez. How to guarantee that an idea will cover some needs? People's vanity is also involved in innovation.
Could you repeat that?
Sure. The question is how to guarantee that an idea will cover some needs?
You can't guarantee. That's where the idea begins, because somewhere or another, if that idea came up, chances are that something prompted you to think about it. And ideas that don't fulfill needs do not provide much benefit to a profit-making organization. This is not to say they should not be pursued by some individual, but organizations that are for profit are probably not going to pursue ideas for the sake of pursuing them.
All right. I think we're almost at the end of the time also. I believe there is one more question which is coming from Stephen. If we are not able to get your questions today, please feel free to send the questions to me. I will pass them along to Gus and have him answer and respond back to your questions.
I'll provide a written response for anybody who turns in a question. So you may want to inform the group that if they have any other written questions, I'll provide an answer for them.
Hi guys, Stefan here. Thanks for answering my first question about bootstrapping. I love it. I'm coming from Mayo Clinic, and my question for you is actually just to get your opinion on the entrepreneurial educational frameworks out there like Lean Startup, and where you see that fitting inside of an institution versus externally for innovators and aspiring entrepreneurs. Thoughts that you might have on that would be awesome.
Starting an entrepreneurial venture, which I did, which lasted for 3 years, very successfully. The recession set in, and that was the end of my as an innovator. But I think nowadays, keep in mind, I did mine in 1970, 1960. And this is 2020. So keep in mind that things have changed, have much more information than we had at my time. And there are many shots you can take, many more sources of information available to you. You can do it more quickly. You can do it more quickly. You don't depend on mail, because all you have to go to the internet and you can find just about anything you need. Oh.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for being here. It's been a pleasure hosting this. For the final words, I would like Ravikiran, the VP of TEMS. Sorry about that. Ravikiran, if you're around, final words from you. Thank you so much. And Gus, thank you for your time. Thank you for your advice, and thank you for the great presentation that you've enlightened us with a lot of information today. Thank you so much. Ravikiran?
Final question. share this recording outside the IEEE organization?
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
The recording will be available on YouTube as well as IEEE TEMS website and is public.